Hello, my name is Oak with Oak Astrology School and welcome to my channel. Today, I am talking about how to tap into the abundance of Jupiter. Right now in 2021, Jupiter is about to move into Pisces on May 13th and it's going to stay there until July 28th of this year. It's going to dip back into Pisces and finish up its movement through that sign from about December 30th, 2021 and into May 10th of 2022. And so while Jupiter is going to be in the sign of Pisces, we are going to have access to all the things that Jupiter, the archetype of Jupiter naturally represents. And that is fortune and luck and abundance, opportunity and wisdom. And I wanted to talk about how to access that because with anything that is flowing, anything that is an opportunity, we can choose to be open-handed or we can choose to be close-handed. I think that what inspired me wanting to talk about this today is that through studying many charts and witnessing people, I've really worked a lot with people that are very Jupiter heavy. And so what I mean by that is within our astrological composition, we're made out of different elements and different signs and different planets. You're normally going to have a predominance of signs, planets, elements. And so there's many ways to calculate your sense of self. But I think one of the easiest ways to think about ourselves, even if we don't know that much astrology, is that there are certain planetary archetypes that we're going to resonate with very deeply. And so in keeping with this topic, if you're very Jupiter, those Jupiter archetypes are usually like the mystic or the sage or the priest or the teacher, the person that is well learned, someone that is a world traveler, someone that is a philosopher. So everything denoting wisdom. And so what makes a Jupiter person is kind of like this idea of like, how can we tune into the vibration of Jupiter while it's moving through Pisces and it's doing very well in the sky, meaning we're going to have access to all this Jupiter energy. How can we best align ourselves to that frequency? Just pay attention to, what is it like for someone who is a philosopher, or a professor, or someone that is a spiritual teacher, or someone that has a very deep spiritual practice, has a very rich spiritual life. Because those are the ways that we're going to relate to Jupiter. The types of people that Jupiter represent, they're people that have a very strong outlook on life. And oftentimes, in order to have fortune, which is what Jupiter represents, I think the whole point is that we want to have fortune in life. We want to have abundance and we want to have wisdom, right? So how are the ways that we're going to best align to that in this year? Because with the heaviness of Saturn in Aquarius, and then also with Pluto and Capricorn still, and just still living off of that conjunction that happened in 2020, accessing Jupiter while Jupiter is good in the sky we're still working with a particular amount of heaviness. So we're working with the energy of intense realism in this upcoming year, as well as this other potential of seeing our situations from a different lens, of seeing it with new eyes, with the eyes of wisdom. And that's really exciting because we really haven't had anything in the sky that suggests a feeling of hope or faith, which are very strong Jupiter words. And so aligning to those Jupiter archetypes of the priest or the sage or the professor or the person who is well learned, like those are the ways that we can align to that vibration, because that energy is going to be accessible to us. And so I think a more modern way of thinking about Jupiter, at least in my opinion, is like I work with a lot of different healers, and I just noticed that a lot of coaches have a very strong Jupiter. So this idea of what a coach does is that they allow someone to change their mindset in order for them to move through blockages and to actually experience abundance. So a lot of times coaches are people that work with abundance because they're allowing us to move through the things that limit us in order to, get the best out of life. And so it's interesting because the polarity of Jupiter and Saturn is that they are divine counterparts. And so Jupiter is the element of expanse in our world, and Saturn is the element of contraction. And so we need our gravity to make us like remain in form. So that's like Saturn literally is an element of matter, and Jupiter is our capacity to grow and expand beyond our limitations. And so it's beautiful to see both of them so prominent in the sky. Saturn very strong in the sky this year, as well as Jupiter. And so there is going to be this potential for expansion. When we have a very strong Jupiter in the sky, like we have this immense potential to see our situations with completely new eyes. And as I said, the eyes of wisdom. What are the things that are going to help us to access that? Spiritual work, meditation, receiving coaching. This is an excellent period of time if you're a coach, I think, because people are going to be wanting to experience that level of, breaking out of those limiting experiences. Like Saturn has been so strong in the sky. We have felt limited as a collective, Saturn in Aquarius. And so it is a very important time for us to cultivate new frameworks of how we're seeing things. And so, an abundance mindset, I mean, there's a lot of, information about manifesting and, that law of attraction stuff. And there's a relative amount of truth to that. And I'm not a fan of this idea of like thinking of things only positively, because the fact of the matter is like we have a very heavy reality that we are in socially, culturally, politically. Everything is extremely dense right now, and that is important for us to be a part of. We can't disengage and disassociate from those those social and personal responsibilities that we have. But the Jupiter allows us the actual energy of faith. And the thing is that my experience of looking at people that have a very strong Jupiter in their chart, so people that actually embody the energy of abundance, embody the energy of what it means to actually constantly be attracting fortune, oftentimes these are coaches. These are people that have a very rich spiritual life, and they're healers too. And also I'm speaking from my lens because my entire world is like in the healing arts. So a lot of those are the people that I usually know. What separates a very strong Jupiter from a not strong Jupiter is this unshakable faith. It is this capacity to be in the utmost belief that yes, this will happen. Yes, there is a way. And so, if you're using that lens as a healer, it's like, yeah, you can be working with someone who has such a bleak experience of, certain traumas, or even the fate that they've experienced in their life has been so unhappy or it's been difficult. And when we have this capacity to believe, when we have this capacity to have faith, we can change that reality by simply believing. And that's kind of corny, but that's the idea of prayer, right? That this is the idea of what it means to pray and to fully, you're cultivating a reality that exists in the ethers. And this is so important that we learn how to cultivate that deep meditative practice and that deep relationship to visualization, because this is actually where we expand with Jupiter and Pisces. Because there's another video where I go over the how Jupiter and Pisces is going to affect you personally on your sign, so you can check out that video. But what I was saying is that Jupiter in Pisces is a type of abundance that comes from within. It's a type of abundance that comes from this infinite relationship to our inner world. And that is cultivated through a deep connection to our rich spiritual life that exists within us, and also is connected to everything else. And so I'm generally excited for this particular transit, because I just feel like a lot of people are going to cultivate more of a deep connection to their spirit, which is really important in order to cultivate a feeling of, yes, we can get through this very harsh time. So you see the balance that is necessary in order to work with Saturn, that is asking all of us for so much social obligation, and it's so easy to feel complacent and like unable to make impact. But by cultivating belief, we're able to really shift that to inspire ourselves. Because if we're just doing our activism work, and if we're just doing our work day by day, and it's because we have to, the level of intention, because it is not inspired from the spirit, is like, the morale is not there. The actual the heart-centered relationship to action is not there. And so that kind of brings me to this point that it's like it's necessary for us to have divine inspiration in all the things that we do, so that when it comes to our responsibilities, Saturn, we are able to do those things with joy. We're able to do those things with a true, like our intent is true. It comes from the heart, and that is actually the way to tap into Jupiter and Pisces. It is a feeling that we are serving from a place deep in our heart, and that relationship to service comes from connecting to who we are on the deepest level. Whether it is that you're you're working a service job, if you're working as a gardener, if you're working as as a mother, if you're just working as a father, if you're working as a sibling, if you're working as a child to your mother, like we can engage in this relationship to like deep gratitude and service, and that as a way to actually feel the abundance. Ultimately, abundance is gratitude, right? And there is a relationship to, when there is abundance, there is a relationship to what is infinite. And so abundance is not hoarding. Abundance is the opposite, where we are incredibly generous. And so another part of when I've watched people that are Jupiterian, in just like my years of counseling people through astrology, when someone has a strong Jupiter, it's like, I don't even care. I'm just going to give it away because I know that there's more that's going to come to me. And in a time where we're in a place of, we're in actual scarcity, like, is there vaccines for people in other countries? Do we have justice for all people? Like we're literally in a place where it's like the government is choosing who can have livelihood and who cannot. What I've witnessed with people that have very strong Jupiters is that there is a natural generosity of spirit. And when we actually tap into spirit, when we tap into the abundance of spirit, it's infinite. There is no time or space, actually. And I think that if you can start to visualize that in your meditations, that there's infinity within you, and that money is just energy, and that our emotions and even our joy is just it's a form of energy. So we can cultivate more of that. Like we can have that be limitless, actually. And so it's a lot of work. I think it's a lot of work to cultivate that relationship to infinite spiritual abundance, even though it's accessible to us, because we live in a world where we're really challenged right now. We're in a very Saturnian world, and the world is just represented by Saturn, our limitations. So if you're going to think about it in terms of how can I find abundance at a very intense socially and political time like right now, like that's crazy, because it's like, how can I find abundance for myself? How can I manifest money when there's millions of people that are sick in India, and there are people being killed in the streets by police in Colombia? How can I be cultivating and wanting to ask for money for myself? And it's not about the personal gain. Like, I think to tap into the frequency of Jupiter and Pisces, it's that we are attracting abundance for ourselves so that we can be in deep service to our spirit, which is connected to everything else. The relationship to service is imperative, I think. It's imperative to connect to this energy of Jupiter and Pisces, because when we tap into service and when we tap into offering ourselves to something bigger than who we are, then we are actually able to feel that immense, infinite relationship to our heart. And Pisces, as the sign that is about our interconnectivity, it allows us to feel that relationship to our humanity. And humanity is something that I feel that we're really grasping to understand at this time, because the power dynamics in our politics and economy are so, which is a never-ending story. But I think right now, because the Saturn-Pluto conjunction usually does indicate a period of time where there is conservatism, like very strong emphasis on conservatism, and that happens every 36 to 40 years. So, it's an age-old story. We're in a very specific period of time right now, but Jupiter in Pisces can bring in that level of inspiration. And so I hope that you can find that, and I hope that you can find the places where you feel abundant and where you feel that sense of deep gratitude. And I think that tapping into this energy, it is cultivating more gratitude in your heart every single day and seeing where that takes you. And when we are in a state of gratitude, we are also in a state of openness. So that's another part of how people that I know that have very strong Jupiter in their chart, there is, as I said before, there is the relationship to generosity, there is the relationship to wisdom, and I think that all of it comes from a deep openness. There is an openness. There is not a closed quality. There's not this type of like things have to be a certain way. There's a lot of interpretive ways of seeing things, and that's where we actually achieve wisdom, is where we are looking at something with many different lenses, and we're finding the lens that holds truth. So this idea of attracting, and this idea of attracting abundance, because that's what's available to us while Jupiter is in Pisces, is that we're also extremely open to the possibility that abundance comes in many different forms. And that is so important, because yes, we can want that ideal job, we can want, this new promotion, we can want that new, video game console. And I think that's all important, and I think that's all valuable to have a very specific wish, and we can concentrate on a particular wish, and that can come true. And also that sometimes the things that we want come in various forms. And so when we're working with spirit, it's like extremely creative, so that there is messages that come through and we might not necessarily understand it, but we always get into that right pathway. And so that's another part, is that there is this level of openness that you have to be operating with when you're thinking about this abundant mindset, or this relationship to harvesting the abundance that is naturally available to you while Jupiter is in Pisces. I have really witnessed a lot of people that have a strong Jupiter. They don't just attract only, they are attracting because part of what they're doing is creating a circuit of generosity. And it works. Through generosity, you witness how your entire world around you changes. And in summary, tapping into the frequency of Jupiter while it moves through Pisces from May through July of 2021, as well as December 30th, 2021 through May 10th of 2022, is all about that relationship to openness. Openness is that foundational quality that will allow us to have wisdom. Openness will allow us to hear the messages from spirit. Openness will allow us to have a deep connection to our own humanity and seeing others, so building that generosity of heart. I hope that you are able to really access this at this time, at this year. It is definitely a balance to strike realism and abundance. And so there is an element of balance in the cosmos that you can tap into this year and into next. But, it's all here. Literally, it's here and here. My name is Oak with Oak Astrology School. If you've enjoyed any of these videos, please like, subscribe. If you're interested in learning astrology, I have a school for professional development, and I really focus on teaching the fundamentals of natal astrology as well as transits and predictive astrology, and all of the teachings are focused on healing, counseling, and using astrology as a tool for liberation. So bless, and I hope that you take really good care of yourself.